Hi, I'm Paul. I'm 52 years old and I live in Louisiana. And I was once one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've been watching the videos on YouTube for a little over a year now of the people in the ExJW community. And I felt it was about time for me to make my contribution to it. My story is similar to a lot of the others, but it's very different in a lot of other ways. So, mine first started when I was probably about 3 or 4. My parents were the first in both of their families to become Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad got exposed to it first, like I say, when I was roughly 3 or 4 years old. He got exposed through a guy that he was working with that introduced him to it. So he brought it home to my mom, and it was kind of detrimental to me because at 3 years old, 4 years old, basically, my world was turned upside down. Everything that I had known up until that point, birthdays, Christmas, playing in the neighborhood with kids and stuff, all that came to a screeching halt once my dad started associating with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and especially once he got baptized. You'll hear more about the story between the relationship between me and my parents, especially me and my dad, as this story goes on. But yeah, he was the one who introduced my family to it. And like I said, I don't have any extended relatives in the witness organization. It's just my mom and my dad. I have 2 brothers, younger than me. I'm the oldest. Needless to say, none of us stayed in it. The part about it that I said was different than other people's is that I never believed it. Even as a small child, I saw that it was wrong. I heard what they said, but then I paid attention to the way that they behaved, and the two didn't match. Throughout my involvement with the witnesses, I found myself surrounded by hypocrites. Yeah, my dad, by nature, he's a very controlling person, just by nature. So the things that the witnesses taught played right into his hands. He was able to, at that point, control us, abuse us, and say it was all biblical based. So yeah, my dad was one of these people to where he didn't believe in talking to children or reasoning with children or explaining why or whatever. If you did something that he disapproved of, if you did something that he disliked of, he just beat your ass. Plain and simple. That was a common occurrence between my mom, me, and my 2 younger brothers. Anything we did that displeased him, you got your ass beat. My mom too. Growing up, my mom never had really much say-so in the house. Now I kind of, to myself, I describe her as the 4th child in the house because we couldn't ask her for permission for anything. Everything had to go through my dad. And the witness and the elders and the ministerial servants in the kingdom halls, we moved to various different kingdom halls around the city during my time. But yeah, each place we went, I'm sorry, the women in there were full of gossip. All they did is backbite each other and talk about each other. When this group would talk about this person, and then when someone left that group, they would talk about them. They stayed on the phone with each other all the time, gossiping. It was a common occurrence. The men, the brothers, regular brothers in the congregation, elders, ministerial servants, all of them, they had a tendency to behave just like my dad did. A lot of them had drinking problems. A lot of them. There was this one brother, an elder. My dad got me a part-time job with him over this. Well, not a part-time job, but a summer job over the summer when I was about 15. It was an automotive repair shop, and this was one of the. You have to forgive me. I've been away from it for a long time, so I don't remember all of the terminology. I don't remember all of the positions and stuff that were in the congregation. I just remember elders and ministerial servants, and I remember some of the other names, the district overseers and stuff, but I don't know if that's the way it's set up anymore. Like I said, I've been away from it for a very long. I've been away from it for over 30 plus years. But yeah. Anyway, I was at this brother's automotive repair shop over the summer. I was about 15, and I witnessed him rip people off, half fix their car, knowing he didn't do a good job, take their money. When he come back, he refused to honor when they would come back with problems with the car, he would refuse to honor the warranty. Just that kind. He didn't carry himself as an upstanding witness when it came to his business dealings. He didn't. He was just the regular Joe Smo that was out to get over on people. That's what I saw every day there. But he and my dad were damn near best friends. So he upheld everything my dad said. One of the worst beatings I got in my life was because I didn't realize at one point that he was just like my dad, basically. My dad was, and I confided in him and told him about a lot of the things that was going on in our house, a lot of the things that my dad was doing, a lot of the ways that he was behaving. And instead of him trying to help us, talk to my dad, call him in and counseling or whatever, he basically just went back and told my dad everything that I said, and told my dad that he didn't have control of his house. So needless to say, my dad came home and damn near beat me senseless. So at that point, I made up my mind I would never utter a word to anyone else, and that's when I started to plan my escape. So I was roughly 15 years old. Up until that point, I just been acting, doing whatever I needed to do to make my dad leave me alone, whatever. He had been on me constantly about getting baptized. He wanted me to get baptized because me not being baptized was an embarrassment for him. He used to always say something like, why can't you be like the other young brothers? Why can't you be spiritual minded like them? And I'm just gonna be honest with you. I had nothing in common with them. I wanted to be a regular kid. I wanted to be a teenager going to school. I wanted to hang out in the neighborhood with friends. I wanted to go to school dances. I wanted to play basketball. I just wanted to be a normal teenager, but I wasn't allowed to do that. So basically, during this same time, I was 15, 16 years old, my dad came to me and he told me that if I didn't want to be a witness, if I didn't want to get baptized, then I had to leave his house. So when he gave me that ultimatum, once again, now I didn't believe it. I saw a lot of discrepancies in the way, and it wasn't necessarily the teachings that I didn't believe at that point, but I didn't believe that these people were who they say they were. I didn't believe that these people were representatives of God. At that time, I didn't know all of the stuff that's available to people now. The age of the internet, this was the early 80s, so none of that existed. But I'm gonna get to the point later as to how I found out that the actual teachings aren't real. Yeah, but anyway, my dad required that I get baptized. So you have to understand the way I think and the way I have conducted myself in my life. I was like, okay, if that's what it takes. I didn't say this out loud to him because I would have lost my teeth, but I said, okay, if that's what it takes to make you leave me alone. We had a neighborhood pool. It was a public pool that all the kids used to go to in the summer. I used to sneak off and go. My dad didn't really allow me to go without him, but I'd lie and say I was going to ride my bicycle or whatever, and I'd sneak off and go to the pool with the rest of the guys in the neighborhood. Yeah, so as far as I was concerned, getting baptized, that's the way I thought about it. It's no different than going to take a dip in the neighborhood pool. It meant absolutely nothing to me because I wasn't doing it on my own free will. I was being forced to as far as I was concerned. So yeah, I got baptized at 15 years old. And at that point, that's when he really started putting the pressure on me in. I don't know if this still occurs, but, well, I doubt it's occurring because they are selling off a lot of the Kingdom Halls now, from what I understand, from watching other videos. But he started pressing me to go and learn a trade. And there's nothing wrong with a trade. There's nothing wrong with people that have trades. But he specifically, and he got my mom on board with it too by bullying her and forcing her into it too. Okay? But he wanted me to go to trade school and become a carpenter. To help build two-day kingdom halls. That was a thing back in the day. In the day, they would get together, and when they were building new halls or whatever, they would actually build them over a weekend. Everyone from the surrounding area that were Jehovah's Witnesses would show up and literally build a kingdom hall in 2 days. Needless to say, I wanted no parts of that shit. None. Zero. So I resisted. I did whatever I needed to do to stall, whatever. Finished high school, but at 15, when my dad forced me to get baptized, that's when I made up my mind. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I'm going to keep my head down until I can get out of high school, find me a job to take care of myself, and get the hell out of here. And basically, that's what I did. I finished high school. I actually finished high school early. I was a year ahead in school. Not a Rhodes Scholar by any means, but I'm not a complete idiot either. So yeah, I had just turned 17 when I graduated high school, so I was a year early. So that made it difficult for me to find full-time employment because I wasn't 18 yet. So I got out of high school, started working. Going to the Kingdom Hall made working difficult because my dad wouldn't allow me to work on meeting nights or whatever. The people that ran the stores, they wouldn't work around meeting nights. So there was always a conflict there. But under no means was I going to give up my job. So I just had to deal with the ass beatings and stuff at home. So I just wasn't going to do it anymore. So I progressively found better jobs and stuff like that until at 19 years old, a week after I turned 19, I didn't tell anybody a word. My friends were out doing stuff or whatever. Other kids in the congregation that were sort of like me, but I didn't trust them. So I kept them at arm's distance. There was one guy that I hung out with, and he did his little sneaky stuff. He's no longer going to the Kingdom Hall either. He used to do his little sneaky stuff, but I could tell he wasn't all the way like me. So I didn't trust him all the way. There were certain things I wouldn't do and wouldn't say around him. But yeah, for the most part, they were out doing their things, sneaking around, doing their little things, living their little double life and stuff too. But I had a mission. I had a goal. Was to get the hell out of my parents' house and get away from that Jehovah's Witness stuff. So I sat at home. After I got a job in a chemical plant. That's what I do now for a living. And I sat at home for about 4 months and saved every dime. And I went and got me an apartment, bought me a vehicle, a better vehicle. I had a car, but I went and bought a better vehicle. And on the day that I got everything set up, I left for work that morning from my parents' house. Like I said, it was a week after I turned 19. Left for work that morning from my parents' house, gathered up all my clothes, put them in garbage bags, because nothing else in the house that I owned, it's just my clothes. Gathered up all my stuff, walked out of the door, put all my clothes inside my car, my trunk, drove away. Never spent another night in my parents' house from that point forward. Never set foot in another Kingdom Hall from that point forward. Fast forward, I've heard people talk about how the elders have tried to come see them and make calls and stuff. They tried one time with me. And I'm not proud of it, but I know they'll never come. It's been 30-something years and they only came that one time because I act such a fool. I cussed, I yelled, I threatened. They almost ran over each other getting away from my door. Literally, it looked like Keystone Cops or something. They was trying to get away from my door. But I've never been disfellowshipped that I'm aware of. Now, when they see me around, when people see me around, certain ones pick and choose, because I still live in the same city that I grew up in. Okay, like I said, I'm 52 years old now. Never left. But certain ones see me. Certain ones will speak or nod or something, but no conversation. Then you got others that'll just ignore me. And that's fine. They haven't been a part of my life for, like I say, over 30 years. I still know them, the ones that are still alive, the ones that are my age. I still know plenty that are my age that they never left the Witnesses, but I know they're doing dirt. They never left because their situation was different from mine. They had, all of their family was in it. They didn't know anyone outside of the Witnesses, so it was hard for them. So I understand why they stayed, but they're part of the new hypocrites that are in the Witnesses. The only thing that came good out of the Witnesses was that I met my best friend at 3-4 years old, and he was the son of the guy that introduced my dad to it. We've been tight ever since the first day we met. You know, we life pulled us in different directions as adults, you know, but we've always stayed in touch. We were thick as thieves growing up. Yeah, we were thick as thieves growing up. So, you know, when he was kind of like in the same situation. I knew his dad and his mom very well. They were like second parents to me. But I don't think that his dad was strict on him, you know, according to the witness stuff. His dad was an elder at one time, been a military servant, you know. But his dad was a little bit more, I find that hard. I'm not gonna say I find it hard to believe, but his dad was more expectant of him because he was an elder, because he was a military servant and stuff. So my friend had to pretend and act just like I did. You know, we talked about it, you know, away from the Kingdom Hall setting and stuff. Away from there, we were truly who we were. You know, but when it came to the Witnesses, we had to put on our Academy Award-winning performances. You know, he and I both knew that we were faking, but we did what we had to do. And to this day, like I say, he when he grew up, he was having difficulty finding a job because his dad had kept him away from everything, you know. So he chose to go to the military simply to get away from the witness stuff, get away from his parents, and get away from the witness stuff. So he made a career in the military. He's traveled all over the world, you know. So I've told him before that I envy him. He's seen things that I can only see on TV or on the internet or something like that. He's actually been to those places. He just recently retired after doing damn near 30 years, you know. But to this day, even though he lives in a different part of the country, like I say, life took him in a different direction than it took me. I just went to work and became a regular guy, you know. But to this day, we pick up the phone and we can call and talk to each other like we them same 3-4-year-old kids again. You know, he knows I'm there for him. He's here for me if whatever we need. But that's the only thing that came out of the Witnesses for me. You know, I've told me and my mom, even though she's not supposed to talk to me, my dad just recently stopped trying to communicate with me. We've never had a good relationship, you know, for various other reasons, just because I just couldn't deal with his hypocrisy, you know, and he's a chronic liar, you know. But, you know, all of the things that witnesses shouldn't be, he is that. But my mom, whenever they put a bug in their ear or something at the conventions or something about contacting those who have strayed away or whatever, my mom will start messing with me again. You know, and I've told her many times that under no circumstances am I ever going back to that. I feel as though I was robbed. I was an exceptionally good athlete in my younger days. I'm an old man now. Those days are long gone. But throughout high school, throughout my 20s, and even into my 30s, but the point of the story is, in my teenage years, in my high school, while I was in high school, I should say, I wanted to play basketball. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not bragging by any means. Just stating a fact. I was extremely good. I'm 6'5". I was good, just naturally. It came naturally to me, and I loved it. But my dad wouldn't allow me to play on the team at school because of the witnesses stuff. From what I understand now, from talking to certain people, they said that a lot of them have relaxed that rule. But when I was there was absolutely no engaging in school activities or anything like that. That was a no-no. So I'm in PE, physical education at school or whatever, and I'm playing against the dudes that are actually on the basketball team, that are actually stars on the basketball team. In my city, there were always 4 or 5 guys that got scholarships to major universities. Every year it happened. I feel like I could have been one of those guys, but I wasn't allowed to. It got to the point to where the coach of the team, who saw me playing against his players in PE and saw how I was performing against them, in some cases I was destroying them. At the very minimum, I was holding my own very effectively against them. So he approached me about playing, and I was embarrassed. I didn't tell nobody outside of the witnesses that I was going to the Kingdom Hall. It was a total embarrassment to me. I didn't want to be there. I was being forced to be there, and I didn't want anybody to know. The guys in my neighborhood knew because my parents would come out and call me and my brothers in to go get dressed to go to the meeting, so couldn't hide it from them. But anybody else outside of that, I was never that person that went to school and said, oh, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Shh, I ain't tell nobody. Nobody. But yeah, so the coach approached me about playing, and I lied to him, and I told him, nah, I really didn't have any interest in playing, So at that point, you got to realize now, this is back in the mid 80s. I graduated high school in 1986, so this was 82 to 86. So times were different then. People talked to each other differently, expressed each other differently and stuff. So you have to excuse me for, I don't mean to offend anyone I don't mean to offend anyone in my telling of this story, but in order for me to tell it, I have to say what actually occurred. So me telling the coach, lying to him, telling him, nah, I really don't want to play. So at that point, he starts saying, oh, you a little punk. You soft. You don't want to play. You know what I'm saying? You scared. That kind of stuff. I would imagine teachers couldn't do kids that now, but that was acceptable back then. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it was part of the culture. He didn't offend me by saying it. He made me feel bad because I knew I was lying to him about why I didn't want to play. So after a few weeks, I guess, of that, he came at me again, trying to, coerce me to play. And I leveled with him. I was honest. I said, well, I wasn't completely honest. I was partially honest. I told him, I said, Coach, I would like nothing more than to play, but my dad's not gonna let me. He was like, why not? And I was like, this is the lie part. I was like, I don't know. He just won't let me play. And that goes back to me not admitting that I was affiliated with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't want anyone to know. So at that point, my coach takes it upon himself to contact my dad, because my coach said it made no sense, because it was a great talent being wasted. Of course, I agreed with him. I was, again, 15, 16 years old, something like that. I had no idea that he was going to contact my dad, so he did. He contacted my dad. And I don't know if it even still exists, but back then there was a brochure that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society put out called, I don't remember the exact title of it, so forgive me, but I know it was called the school brochure. My dad got up after the coach called him and took his ass over to my high school to talk to my coach with that school brochure. I was totally embarrassed. It's needless to say now, somebody knew, and I didn't want anybody to know. So somebody knew. And at that point, the next day, when I got to school, after my dad took his, I take that back, it wasn't the next day. It was that same day, because my dad brought his ass to my school that morning. So later on that day, I saw the coach. I'm not going to use his name. I'm trying to avoid using names. I saw the coach, and I could just see the pity and bewilderment in his eyes as to, I can only imagine what my dad told him, but I could see he just felt pity and sorry for me, and I felt bad that he felt bad for me, because it shouldn't have happened. I'm still bitter behind that, because I feel like I don't know where my life could have ended up. I don't know what I could have become. the ability to find that out was robbed from me, along with so many other things. When I left home at 19 years old, I knew absolutely nothing about how the world works. I just knew I wanted to get the hell away from the Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't know anything about paying bills. I didn't know anything about interacting with people in the world. I was flying by the seat of my pants when I got out of my parents' house because I was totally ignorant as to how things worked. Story is something as simple as paying bills. My parents never talked to me about that. They didn't. Of course, like any other kid, I knew I lived at home. I knew the lights were on. I knew we had food in the house. You know, I knew I lived in a house. But they never talked to me about how to be responsible, how to pay bills and stuff. I learned all that through trial and error. Like I say, flying through the seat of my pants. It's not funny, but something as simple as a checking account. I didn't understand. I understood it, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that there were consequences for writing checks and you didn't have money in the bank. I didn't. I figured, okay, they just got to wait till I get it. It's not how it works. They try to put your ass in jail when you do that. But they didn't. I ended up having to go back and pay all them checks that I had wrote. But I wasn't doing it to be a criminal. I was doing it because I didn't know. I didn't understand. I really didn't. And that's just one of many things that I had to find out through trial and error. Just relationships with people, interacting with people. It took me a while before other people looked at me as normal, because I didn't know how to talk about certain subjects that they were talking about. I didn't understand that. I didn't. You know, so I made a lot of errors that cost me a lot of money, a lot of time, because of my ignorance, because I didn't know. I see young people before the pandemic hit and all that. I used to see young people out with their parents or other people in the congregation, and I just used to feel so sorry for them, because I knew that there's a bunch of them that right now are in the same situation that I'm in. They don't want to be, that I was in. They don't want to be there, but they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. They're being forced to. And it gets to the point to where they want to please those people around them, their parents, so bad, until they just go along with it. And before you know it, they start to believe it. They start to buy into it. The part that I was saying about earlier in the video about not knowing that the beliefs were false, because the information that's available today at your fingertips wasn't available back then. But as I said earlier, I'm not a Rhodes Scholar, but I'm not a complete idiot either. I love to read. I've always loved history and that kind of stuff. So back in my day, in the 80s, you wanted to know something, you went to the local public library. We had them spread out all over the city. So once I stopped going to the Kingdom Hall or whatever, I'd say I was in my mid-20s to late 20s at that point. Got my mom coming at me all kind of ways. You know, I said, let me start researching to see if these things that these people are teaching is true. Again, I want to say this was probably somewhere around 89, 90, in that area. Yeah, I took it upon myself one day to go to the library. And as they say now, that led me down the rabbit hole. So that's when I started looking up the origins of the Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Russell, Rutherford, all of them. Long before people knew about it, now I knew about, I think it's called Beth Shireen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I found all that out back then, that these people are grifters, basically. You know, they make the one. I remember one of the books I read about Charles Taze Russell. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. I don't know. Don't really give a damn if I'm saying it wrong or not. But he based a lot of the teachings and beliefs and stuff like that off of pyramidology, the study of the pyramids in Egypt, the math associated with it, or whatever. That's how he came up with a lot of his philosophies and a lot of his belief systems in starting it wasn't called Jehovah's Witnesses back then, I don't think. I think it was called International Bible Students or something along those lines. But yeah, those are the origins of it, you know. And from what I understand, it sprang from, you got Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons. I don't know if Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists is the same people or what. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I don't know if it is. But yeah, there's like 4 or 5 religions that we have now. They all spring from the same origin. Jehovah's Witnesses is one. They all share that same connection of coming from that original origin. But yeah, I found out at an early age, and at that point I was so bitter till I was sitting waiting for my mom or my dad to say something to me about it again. I've always had a pretty close relationship with my mom, but me and my dad have always been at odds, always, since I've been in this world. I've tried. The last time that my dad reached out to me, and we would see each other periodically, sporadically, we might see each other. If we run up on each other at a extended family member's house or something like that, you know, we pass a few words, be cordial, but we were never close, never. And it's ironic because people say I look just like my dad. But anyway, he sent me this long text message when they stopped him from going out in field service, and when they stopped him from going to the meetings and stuff like that. He sent me this long text message about they've stopped the witnessing work and he don't know if it's ever going to start again, and you know, the end is near, the end is right around the corner, the great tribulation is coming, you know, and all this. So I read his message and I responded back to him. You know, I wasn't disrespectful, but I was very direct. I told him, I said that I've told you many times before that I don't share your beliefs. The things that you believe are not true. I said they've been preaching, Jehovah's Witnesses have been preaching basically doomsday. The end has been right around the corner. Shit, since I was 3-4 years old. That's a long ass corner. It's a long ass corner. And it ain't here yet. I basically told him, I was like, basically I don't believe it. I'm not coming back to it. Because that was in the text message too. Jehovah sent out a message to all those that were once followers of his or whatever to come back to him because he loves you and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Never. Buildings can start falling down around me. I ain't running to no Kingdom Hall. I guess I just go stand up under one of the roofs of the buildings and let it crush me, because I damn sure don't want to go back in no Kingdom Hall. Yeah, but you know, and speaking back on the fact that my dad has been a hypocrite, and a lot of them people have been hypocrites, but I was in a household with him, so I saw him. He's been to did this fellowship 2 or 3 times. Each time it was for adultery. Each time. My dad, as long as I have been able to know what another woman was, he's always had 2 or 3 besides my mom. Always. And that's what he would get in trouble for. And they would disfellowship him or whatever. He'd stay out 6 months or whatever, write his little letter. They'd let him right back in. He'd go right back to doing what he was doing. So like I said, over the years, he's been disfellowshipped. I forget, because he got disfellowshipped the first time right before I left home. Like I said, he was out like 6 months. And I think he's been disfellowshipped 2 or more times since I've left home. I really haven't been keeping track of it, but I just know it happened. So when that happened, along with me growing up in a household and seeing these things that he was doing and these things that he was saying and stuff, sneaking and doing and figuring nobody saw, and along with that, that's why I knew. And with the things that I was doing also, I'm going to make an admission. And I've told my mom this. But again, as I said earlier, I was forced to do everything. I didn't volunteer for anything when it came to the witnesses. Nothing. So my dad forced me to join the theocratic ministry school. And this was before I got baptized. I was just what they call, I guess, a publisher. But my dad forced me to join. So I'm like, okay. So I'm 14, 15 years old. Probably joined before. He probably made me join when I was 12. I don't know, 13, something like that. But yeah, I realized it's been a long time ago. But anyway, he made me join. By the time I was 15, I was smoking marijuana. Hiding and doing it, sneaking and doing it, of course. But yeah, I was smoking marijuana. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've been on the stage it varied. They would change the days on it, depending on what congregation that we were in at that particular time. But the Theocratic Ministry School normally was on a Wednesday or Thursday night. I can't tell you how many times that I've sat in the back of the car on the way to the meeting on the night of my talk, scribbled down some randomness on an index card or something with a few scriptures thrown in to make up the time. I think it was like you had to give like a 5-minute talk. I never made it to 5 minutes. I'd make it like 3.5 or 4 minutes or something like that. But they would always tell me that I'm not using up all the time. But anyway, I can't tell you how many times I have been on that stage giving a talk high as hell. I done went behind the garage before we left to go to the meeting and smoked the joint. I done rode in the back of the car with my parents to the Kingdom Hall, gave that talk, stared at the clock the whole time, howled my mind. And they would give me good marks on the talk. So I knew from my actions, there's no way God is behind this. Because I'm high out my fucking mind right now. And there's no way God is sponsoring this. The things that I saw them do, I knew that there's no way that these are God's people. There's no way that God, whoever you consider God to be, they consider Jehovah to be God. So there's no way that any God is going to go along with and be okay with the way that these people behave. Yeah, they ain't killing people. They ain't murdering people. I knew, and he was a high-ranking Jehovah's Witnesses. He was a high-ranking Jehovah's Witness, I should say. And I can't use his name, but people in my area who are older, my age, and so they know exactly who he is. But he was a high-ranking Jehovah's Witness, and he was molesting the hell out of these 2 boys. And we all knew it back then. We all knew it. But nothing was being... And I say we all knew it, the kids that were our age, the kids that were teenagers. It was this single mom that was in the congregation, and she had two boys. They were close in age. They were like a year apart. Their father was nowhere around. So this sister allowed this brother to, they didn't call it mentoring back then, but be a father figure to him or whatever. And you could just see in these kids' body language, in their attitudes and stuff, that something wasn't right. And they confided in a few people, other kids, other teenagers and stuff, of what was being done to them. And this guy was literally molesting them. He was. And it was a open secret that nothing was ever done about. These kids, of course, once they grew up and didn't have to go anymore, they got far away from it too. But I'm quite sure they were scarred badly, psychologically. I had made up my mind. I say, again, things pass from people, from person to person. The grapevine, gossip train, whatever you want to call it. So we all knew, but as kids, there was nothing that we could do. There was nobody for us to tell, because nobody was going to help them. Nobody was going to do anything for them. But I had made up my mind. This particular brother, if he had tried anything with me, whatever he touched me with, he was going to lose. I was going to cut it off. So, and then I was standoffish anyway, and they said I was bad association, so I didn't have that to worry about. But I did, at that time, I felt bad for these 2 guys. We were all about the same age, and I really felt bad for them. I really did. So with this, when all this came out in the last few years or whatever about the child molestation and stuff like that, I knew firsthand that the shit was true. Not from it happening to me, but from me knowing an elder that was doing it to kids. I knew without a doubt that it was true. But, whenever I hit my mom or my dad with stuff like this, they're so brainwashed until they say, I've been called demonized, I've been called an apostate, I've been called everything. But as I said earlier, as far as I know of, I've never been disfellowship. Nobody, my mom has never told me that they've read my name off from the stand, the platform. My dad has never told me that anybody's read my name off. So But it doesn't matter to me, disfellowship or not. That plays no part in my life anymore. I've been so far removed from that. It doesn't. And I told my mom, it's like, I told my mom and my dad. Again, me and my dad don't talk often, but over the years I've told him this. If you allow, what is it, 7 or 8, the governing body, 7 or 8 members, if you allow 7 or 8 men in New York to dictate to you whether or not you can socialize with your flesh and blood, with your son, you let them tell you what you can and can't do, and you choose to go with that, fine, I'm good with it. I'm not leaving you, you're leaving me. So, and here recently, ever since my dad sent me that text message, which was April of last year, so it's almost been a year, but I haven't heard from him. He made the comment to one of my brothers that I'm not welcome at his house because one of my niece was about to, she graduated last year, and my brother wanted to throw a little party or whatever. My dad has a lot of room at his house, and my brother asked him to use his house to have the party if they decide to have one. And my dad told him that he could have it there. And my brother was saying because of the pandemic, it was going to be, close immediate family. It wasn't going to be no big blowout or whatever. And my brother said he was naming the people basically that he was going to invite. And when he mentioned my name, my dad told him, no, he can't come to my house. My father, his firstborn. I'm his firstborn. I can't come to his house. But you know what? I'm good with it. I'm good with it. So, yeah. I've had so much go on that just with these witnesses people that I've witnessed them do. I've witnessed the witnesses do. It's funny. Yeah, I worked at when I was 16, I worked at a convenience store down the street from my house. Again, I lived in the inner city. In the city that I grew up in, I lived in the inner city. So it was this family that owned the grocery store there. I knew them, and they gave me a job when I was a teenager. And people in and out the store in the community. 2 things. I witnessed the ministerial servant. I witnessed the ministerial servant and an elder shoplifting out of there on 2 different occasions. The ministerial servant, I walked down the aisle and caught him stuffing meat into his socks. The packaged meat into his socks. And when I rounded the corner and saw him, he looked like a deer in headlights. And I just kind of smiled, looked at him, and I gave him that look like, yeah, I see you. And he had this panic-stricken look on his face. He pulled his pants down over his sock and walked out of the door. He still stole the meat. He still stole it. It's not like he put it back when I saw him. He stole it. He was a ministerial servant in my congregation. But I hadn't bought into it. I didn't go snitch on him. I didn't. I never told a soul. This is the first time I'm speaking of it. Well, I'm not going to say it's the first time I'm speaking of it, but I've told the story before, but I've never identified him. I've never identified who he was. Same thing with an elder. Same store that I'm working in. Could have been around the same time frame. Weeks, months in between or whatever. He walks in, speaks to me. Walks in, walks around the aisles, and I could see him looking around. I knew the body language because I was around guys that were master shoplifters. But anyway, I knew the body language, so I knew he was up to something he shouldn't have been up to. And I'm kind of glancing, looking at him every now and then. People not really watching him because he's a regular in the store. The people trust him. Again, this is a different era. So the people trust him. So I watch him walk around the store a little, act like he's looking at stuff on the aisles and stuff. He goes to the back of the store where the beer cooler is. I'm looking at him the whole time. So he gets a 12-pack of beer out. I never forget, it was Milwaukee's Best. He gets a 12-pack of beer. He walks around the back of the store like he's looking on the end of the aisles and stuff. Then he walks to the far end of the store by where the exit door is, walks up that aisle, and out the door with that 12-pack of beer. Whole elder in the congregation. Again, I'm not going to identify him. Honestly, I don't even know if he's still alive. I don't know. I haven't seen him in years. But yeah, these are the people that were supposed to be the leaders of the congregation. These are the people that discipline you when you do wrong. and they stealing. You know? And I can't tell you how many of them that I knew, along with my dad. As I told you, he used to beat all our ass, but that was commonplace. You know, the Jehovah's Witness men were extremely abusive, extremely. You know, to wives, to children. That's who they were. That's what they were. I can't speak for anybody else's experience, but the experience that I've had in the city that I live in southern Louisiana, yeah. I don't know how they behave now, but during my time there, it was bad. It was bad. So yeah. That being said, I know I kind of rambled in here. Of course, I'm going to edit the video, but yeah, I never believed it. I never wanted any parts of it. I have called it a cult long before YouTube and the internet and all that came about. It's a cult. That's what it is. You know, my mom gets upset when she hears me say this, and I don't bombard her. I don't bring it up unless she brings it up. You know, when she brings it up, she wants to say what she wants to say, but she doesn't want me to reply. And when I reply and tell her that it's a cult, and I tell her about all her beliefs that aren't true, she doesn't want to talk anymore then. You know, and I understand that that's the defense mechanism that they have instilled in them. They have drilled it in them for years, you know. So at this point, there's nothing else that she knows, and she actually believes it. You know, I know it's bull, but to each his own. I just wish that I've basically sat and watched my mom waste her life in this, you know, with the hopes of a reward that's not gonna come. It's not gonna come. So, and I feel like I was robbed. I don't know what I could have been. I don't know what my life could have turned out to be. And that was taken from me by the Jehovah's Witnesses. In the end, that's what it was. I don't hate them. I realize that they're people. Some of them, I'm quite sure, there were some good people. I just wasn't exposed to them. I really wasn't. But I'm quite sure that there were some good people. But yeah, I don't. And nobody's come to my home or anything like that in years, 20 years or so. So yeah, but if you are a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses now and you want out, it can be done. It really can. You got to figure out I'm not going to tell you to do what I did and just get your stuff and leave. That may not work for you. Again, only my mom and dad were witnesses. I didn't have any extended relatives. You know, yes, I was baptized, but I was forced to be baptized. So as far as I'm concerned, it didn't count. You know. So when I walked away, I was able to walk away. Yeah, I had my struggles from my ignorance, from not knowing things, but I didn't have to worry about. I still had my brothers that I could talk to. You know, once they grew up and left home too. I still had my brothers that I could interact with. I still had people that I had met through working and that kind of stuff, even though I struggled with relationships at first, but I was able to figure it out after a while, and after several years, I was able to figure it out. But yeah, you know, I was able to, because I didn't feel a sense of loss when I walked away, I was able to manage. You know, everybody's not in that situation, I understand. But if you want out, there is a way. You have to determine for yourself that you want out and start putting the pieces in place while you're there to make your escape. Whatever those pieces may be, only you know your situation. So if there's means that you can do, if it's money that you need to leave, start saving your money. If it's relationships that you need to build, start building those relationships now. Don't let them tell you that you can't. Don't let them dictate to you what you can and cannot do. They are people just like you, flesh and blood. They do not represent a divine presence. They are not. They are not. So don't let them dictate to you what you can and cannot do. You may not be able to do it blatantly. You may have to hide and sneak and do it. But do the things that you need to do to put the proper pieces in place so you can leave if you want to. Don't let them hold you hostage. I know that's easier said than done. but it can be done if that's what you want. So I intentionally didn't go into a lot of details about certain things because I got a lot of stories about my time in the witnesses, things that I saw people do, things that I saw them flip-flop on and change and try to explain later, that I'm gonna use for some videos in the future. So if you like my story, I realize I rambled. I don't know what the finished product is going to be yet, but I'm going to edit it down and chop it up and do whatever I need to do to it. But if you liked my story and you want to hear more of these stories, please like, share, and subscribe. If you don't, I'm sorry. This is my first video. I'm learning. I'm trying. Again, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, trying to figure it all out. So I appreciate it. Thank you.